Hey guys, Dad Gizmo here. Today we're going to build an indoor barn door for my daughter's bedroom so that she has full access to her closet on all sides. We didn't want a door to swing open into where her clothes were, so we wanted to build a barn door so it could easily slide out, and it gives a kind of a decorative look to the room. So to get started, we went to the hardware store and we picked up a bunch of pine lumber. Now we didn't get really good pine lumber because, for one, it's a daddy-daughter project. So we wanted to really build it for her room, and we wanted her to be able to help, and we didn't want to make a mistake and have to go, oh my God, I just ruined a piece of good oak wood. So we're using some somewhat rough pine wood. We also like the look a little bit better. It's kind of rustic looking. So today we're building a 36.5-inch wide door by 84.5-inch height of the door. So of course, measure before you do your door. This one works really well for us because we wanted it to be basically the size of the frame around it. So we measured from top to bottom of the frame, gave ourselves a little bit of room on the bottom so that it doesn't snag on the carpet. And then we wanted to make sure it was wide enough to block the entire door, of course, and so we want to do that as well. All right, to get started, here's what we did. We laid out all of our wood to make sure that things were as close to tight as we could on each of the seams. Make sure the better wood you get, the easier this is going to be on everybody. So make sure you get stuff that's not warped or twisted. Get the best wood you can to get it to be as tight as seams as you possibly can. Then I went through and I cut down the 1x8s and 4 of the 1x6s. I cut them down to 84.5. Again, measure your door. I cut mine down to that because it matches with the framing of the door. Then after I did that, I cut the end pieces out that would actually act as my header. So I did this for the top and the bottom, and so I cut that out to get that correct. And as I did that, and I started assembling the door, you have to start measuring through some of your pieces. So make sure everything's good and squared up. Obviously things are loose here right now for me because I'm just assembling it to show you what I did. Then I cut these middle pieces that went from top to bottom. So they should butt up against it. You want your top header and footer to run on all of your boards because that's what's really keeping everything really tight together. So you want to do those next. And in doing that, what I did is, you can see that there's pencil marks on these. So what I did is I measured to get the very center of the door. So I wanted to get the center of the door, and then I also wanted to get the center of the piece of wood that I had as well. So that way those lines line up. So I know that the top part of my arrow and the bottom part of my arrow will be the same size. So I did that next. So everything's a little bit loose fitting right now. Then I took, and I wanted to cut my arrow pieces out. So that was the next piece that I had to do. So as you can see, I went through and I cut these arrow pieces out. And basically I measured from corner to corner first, and then when things kind of tighten up here, you'll see, then I basically used a straight edge to lay across the top to make sure that I was cutting the correct angle on this, which I think is about a 30 degree, but to make sure I cut the correct angle on it, I measured like that, and I cut it with a chop saw. I did the same thing with the bottom side. So as I did it, cut out the pieces. So then I dry fit everything. Laid it all out, made sure it all fits, make sure that your seams look pretty good, and that you're ready to start gluing and getting the door put together on this side, which, like I said, dry fitting it, gonna glue underneath each of these boards to make sure that there's no movement at all, make sure it's nice and tight. Once I do it, I'm gonna start, and then I'm gonna go through and nail these things out, do it for each of these on the top side of the door, let it sit for a while, let that glue kind of take hold, and let things kind of be, get kind of more solid in state, and then we're gonna flip it over, put screws in it to hold everything really tight. All right, what I started with the 2 end boards because that's really what's tying everything together is the top and the bottom board. So I'm starting with those. I glued underneath them, and then I nailed each board a few times to get it nice and tight. I did both the top and the bottom to make sure that everything gets in there really good and tight. Then I'm doing the sideboards next. So I'm putting down glue. I'm not gluing in between these boards. You could if you wanted to. I don't think it's really going to help much in this case because those boards, if they're going to separate there. So I'm doing each board at a time. to make sure I get them in good and solid, and I line them all up and make sure it's good and square. And then I'll nail these and I'll move on to the next one. Get some sanding to do when I'm done. Here we go. I'm gluing the center board in next. And as you can see, it pretty well lines up. I'm not exactly perfect, but then again, I'm not a carpenter either. There we go. And of course, you could buy one of these if you wanted to. If you wanted to buy a barn door, you could buy one for $300, $400, you know, and they'd probably go through the same process and you might get a little bit better, but it's a good project to do with your kids. It's fun. Okay, so a couple things I did that I could have done a little bit better. This one's a little bit off. So this board's a tiny bit warped, and so on cutting it, it was a little bit off. You can see it's a little bit off. It doesn't matter much, because for one, this is the back side of the door, so you won't see this as much. The second thing is from the front side, you're gonna see the bottom panel. So unless you wanna get onto my carpet and take a look at it or climb up above the door, you're never gonna see it. So the last step we're doing right now is we're gonna tighten everything really down together by putting some good 1 1/4 inch, you don't want to go more than 1 1/2 or it'll go through, 1 1/4 inch wood screws into it. I'm using deck screws. And I'm going to put it, like, I'll probably do all of them along the bottom to put it nice and tight for each of the boards, and I'll do a couple sporadic around the tops. So 2 things I'm doing here. Pine wood is pretty soft, so I'm naturally just sinking them just a little bit, just so I can I can putty them, and then I can sand it and I can paint it, and it'll look like one solid door. So next I'm just puttying the screws, and then I'll come back and sand them later, but just throwing some putty on each of the screws going into it, and then we'll get them as smooth as we can.
So we picked the paint for the barn door. I'm so excited, guys. It's pink. It's that bright or dark pink, I guess, but it's so pretty.
Okay, so here's where we're at. We have the door completely assembled. We have all of the holes and that sort of thing patched up. We have everything sanded down, so you can feel it's got some stuff. We'll probably do one more trip with a vacuum over it. So as you can see, you know, we had a few bumps where we didn't really like the gapping, so we took care of that. We puttied them in. We sanded everything down with an orbit sander. So we of course broke our first orbit sander, so it just shattered. Thanks, Craftsman, whatever. So we had to go and buy a new orbit sander. So like everything in this project, we had to buy new stuff for it. But now we have a beautiful, gorgeous door.
Yeah.
It's smooth.
It's smooth. I won't get a splinter from it.
This is the front of the door, and the arrow goes towards the window. We're going to show you that later once we get everything mounted. But Savannah had to do the sanding with the orbit sander, so now her arms are shaky. So
oh yeah, it's so much work.
She can barely hang on to it. So now the whole thing's got to be primed so that the wood is ready for taking on what we just got, which is bright
pink,
bright nail polish pink looking stuff.
Nail polish pink.
Yes.
There's
so
many different.
We're hoping against hope that if we prime this white, that this will cover in one coat. It says it primes and stuff in one, but we don't believe them.
Now it's time to paint it pink.
So the last step of making a barn door is you have to put up the barn door hardware so that you can put the barn door on it, and so it will slide back and forth. Every kit's a little bit different. Our kit had very minimal instructions, but it's pretty easy if you follow kind of the pictures and what's going on with it. You get your measurements down, but just make sure that it drags a little bit, just a little bit off the ground, that you don't, you have all your measurements kind of done right. It's also a very good idea to make sure that your your rail itself for the barn door to slide back and forth is level. Don't count on your walls being square. Don't count on measuring from floor to ceiling or ceiling to floor. Count on a level. So make sure you do that. Make sure everything's kind of leveled out. Here's the moment of truth. Does it actually fit and is the height right? So it's on the rails, right? So obviously I have to put the spacer in on the floor yet, so don't judge that it sways out. It still sways out. But, woo! Now what? All right, so here we are. We have a finished barn door, and I know what you guys are thinking. How much did it cost? So basically, the wood itself was about 80 bucks. So I got basically rough pine wood, sanded it really well, patched up what I wanted, caulked in some things. You know, that's pretty much it. I spent 80 bucks in the hardware. Really like the hardware. It's nice. It's pretty easy to install. At first you look at it, you're like, the instructions aren't great. But really, it's not that hard. So I like that. So now we're at $160, right? And I spent $12 and a quart of paint, which is what you see as this pink, bright color that some would say might have ruined a very, very nice barn door, but my daughter loves it. So, so this is what she gets. And then I probably spent another $5 or $6 in screws, a little bit of caulk, some things like that. So you're talking 80 is $160. You're at about 12 in paint. So you were at $172. Let's just say $185. Built a great barn door for $185. It was a good father-daughter building. It was a good wife painting project for her to do, and my boys got involved with doing some of the sanding work. So it was a good family project, and it was only $185, and it adds a little character to her room. So that's it. So like our videos, give us a thumbs up. Tell us what else you want us to try to build. We'll even show you if we fail. That's where we are. Talk to you next time. Thanks. Bye. It's not soundproof. It's not soundproof at all. But anyways, it was kind of fun. So it's my best Jim Carrey. There you go.